what does that mean, Jim? Does that mean that Shannon eats frozen chili as well, like her sister? I'd love to know. So we can figure this out and be nice to hear. So I want to know if that's what happens. If Shannon's just as bad as Aaron. So Shannon, be honest. If you're eating the food before your father's done cooking. But yeah, I mean, we spoke so much about cooking, and you go back and you watch that and you say to yourself, like, I had no idea we spent that much time with it, but it's such a cool thing that we talked about because Jim loves it, and it is an artwork. I mean, it is a work of art, and I do believe, that it is a love letter. I think when you cook and you have a passion for anything, it's a love letter to the people that you care about. Like, let's be real about it. It is, it's a love letter back home. And Jim said you don't get between them. So what does that mean, Jim? What, when it comes to food? So, but yeah, I mean, I think anything that you do that you really genuinely care about is a love letter to the people that you care about. To the dog and the cat, to the family that you have, it's a love letter back. Some people draw, some people shoot bow and arrow, and some people, some people cook, some people sing, some people genuinely write letters. It's a joke with people that know me, but it's also something that I hope that people appreciate. And I know I've made a lot of people cry, and happy tears, not sad ones, but I like to write. Whenever I get a card, I don't just like sign my name. I actually, take the time to write to you, and a lot of the times I would rhyme stuff. But I like to write letters to people and tell them exactly how I feel about them in that moment, like everything leading up to this point. So, I think that there's a lot to be said about this love letter that you can send to people, and that Jim does it through cooking, I think is so cool. As Shannon wrote, she said, "I'm definitely more patient than Aaron. However, when Aaron is hungry, get out of her way. It's better if she eats. I have been kicked out of the kitchen, though." So Shannon's admitting that she has been kicked out of the kitchen by her father, as Aaron has, I'm guessing here. But she said, if Aaron's hungry, get out of her way. It's better if she eats. So, okay. So we have a hangry sister and maybe a more patient sister that are twins. Shannon and Aaron spending some time with us on the live feed here on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT as we speak about their father, Jim DaRin, in this Spotlight Special. So a big time shout out to the family and to Luann. I've had the pleasure and the honor of obviously being with Jim, and the absolute honor of meeting Aaron. And I have not had the pleasure of meeting Shannon or Luann yet, and I look forward to that. I have met Holly, the dog, and she did show me her belly, so she trusts me, so that's good. We've established that. Dogs know that I love dogs. Cats know that I love dogs. That's how I know. That's how I know I'm doing something right in my life. But yeah, Holly's the sweetest thing. She's this big old dog, big old yellow lab, and she's got this little pink bow on her neck, and she's a sweetheart. So shout out to her. I didn't get in trouble with my dog Lily when I came home. Lily kind of sniffed her. And you always wonder if it's like, the dog is almost like you come home to like somebody you're dating and they're like, what is that smell of that other person, So Lily comes, first thing she does when I see another dog, she sniffs my leg and it's like, what's going on? And then she's fine because she trusts her dad. So Jim said Shannon is a great cook and baker. Red velvet cake. All right, Shannon, so you got to make red velvet cake and I got to try it. That's how it's got to be. So If somebody tells me somebody's great at something, I got to be the judge of it, and I got to try it. So, red velvet cake, you're going to have to make that. Dad's making chili. That's good stuff. So, and just an incredible family. And I think what's so cool about this incredible family is that we're going to hear from Uncle Tom in just a little bit. Tom DaRin's going to be joining the show, and I'm really ecstatic about the fact that he'll be on the show because we've had the opportunity to really have some fun with this, and to off the air, I've had the opportunity to speak with Tom in preparation of today, and to hear about the family. So I'm really, really excited about that. Shannon said bring Lily over and that she'll make red velvet cake. So deal, Shannon. You got it. You got a deal. That's a handshake deal. So once I shake hands, it's the real, because I'm an old school guy. So if I shake your hand, I mean it. And my word is my bond. That's what Floyd Little said. Your word is the most valuable thing you own. So if you have your word, you have it all. And if you don't have your word, you have nothing. So I give you my word, Shannon, that I will bring Lily over, and you will make red velvet cake. So somehow I got out of this one easy, but and because I just want to have a bird's eye view of what the kitchen is like with everybody in it. But to speak on family as Tom gets ready to come on, the just really cool aspect of how Jim's life evolved. Have we not all been at a kitchen table when somebody broke our heart? And Jim tells that story, and he told that story here. Have we not all been at a kitchen table when somebody broke our heart? Or somewhere. Maybe we're at a kitchen table. Maybe we were on a hike. Maybe we went to go visit them. Maybe it was in the rain. Maybe it was in the sun. Maybe it was on vacation. Maybe it was at home. Maybe it was at college. But maybe it was in high school, right by the locker. We've all been there when someone's broken our heart. And I look at Jim's life now, and and Jim, please know what I mean by this. I'm so happy for your almost maybes. That song I told you I found yesterday. I'm so happy for your almost maybes, because your almost maybes gave you Shannon and Aaron. Your almost maybes gave you Luann. Your almost maybes gave you the house that you're in. Your almost maybes gave you that smile that's on your face every time I see you. Your almost maybes gave you friends like Jim Jerome and Carl Sanfilippo. Your almost maybes made you the inspiration that you are. So, to the people that broke your heart, to the people that didn't think you could ever get out of that hospital bed, to the people that didn't believe in you, shame on them and good for you. And you are one person in this world that shines a light. And if we all did that, what would this world look like? It would be bright. It wouldn't be dark anymore. So I really am honored, and I'm very, very privileged that you light up people's lives, Mr. DaRin. And when you smile, it changes things. And like I said, I haven't had the pleasure to meet Luann yet, but I'm sure she's happy for all the almost maybes. For the girls that broke your heart and the girls that said no, because she got to say yes. And the way that you speak about her is incredible. He stood by the door, and this stuff makes me emotional because I do believe in true love. And he said that, he said, Luann's my rock. And, it takes a strong, strong, strong person to believe in love and to stand by it. And it seems like, Jim and Luann have that strength. And to be that example for their kids, to be that example for me, to be that example for you that's listening and watching, that means so much, and it goes such a long way. I told Jim I'm getting way too used to bringing him coffee on a Saturday, and it makes me want to do it every Saturday, to just bring him a Cafe Cubal cup because he loves their coffee, and to just sit with him. Sometimes we sit in a den, sometimes the game's on, sometimes it's not. And we always just end up talking about stuff. But, to Shannon and Aaron, really appreciate that time with your dad, which I'm sure you do. Because in the very short amount of time, the very small window that I've gotten to speak with him, he makes me want to drive up to the house every Saturday. And, and to Luann, God, you hit this man over the head and tried to tell him that you like him. And he finally listened, because sometimes we are hard-headed. I am Calabrese and from Italy, and they say we're hard-headed, but we don't always catch the signs. We don't always see the cues. Men are very Tarzan, and women are very, there's so much going on in a woman's mind, I've realized. And, men were very much like, I like you, you like me, let's date, move on. I want chicken, eat chicken, And not that we're stupid, I just feel like, we don't always think as broad. And I sometimes you got to hit us over the head is what I'm saying. And I'm happy that you hit Jim over the head with your love, and that he listened to it. Because if you didn't go and drive out of your way and bring him donuts, he doesn't have the life he has today. So, Luann, you made a difference. And obviously Shannon and Aaron make a difference. And Italo and Virginia have made a difference, his parents. And, the fact that his brother Tom's going to be on the show today is so exciting, because first and foremost, Tom has a fantastic radio voice. I picked up the phone, he's like, hello. So but he's got a fantastic radio. I might have to put him on here more. But, family is such an incredible thing, and it's so important. And like I said, wake up call is where sports meets life. So, that's why we talk about life. I don't know if we talked about a lick of sports today, but, to see the value of family, that's blood and that's not, it's such an amazing thing to have that. I think we, for those of us that do get to eat at the dinner table with our family a lot, I think sometimes we lose that, like, how cool this is, right? That you put your cell phones away and the computer away, and you just talk about your day. You learn about each other. What I've realized is I can learn things about my dad and my mom 35 years in that I never knew. I can, learn things about Evan and Ross and Rob and, Nico and Miguel and so on and so forth that I never knew. Sometimes it takes but one conversation to change your life. And that is where the coolness is. With Jim, I want to always have, it's an always to be continued with Jim. Every time we talk, it's like, I can't wait until, like, it's always like we talk about something and then I'm like, okay, well, there's more to come. And, being with Carl Sanfilippo last night and talking about it, and being over at Pizza Man with Jim and his father, it was cool to see that, like, people in the community were watching the video. And really love your life, Jim. Love what you have become and love the person that you are. And it goes, you're touching so many lives, and I'm not trying to make you cry this morning, Jim, I promise, but you touch so many people's lives, that you're not just a spotlight special, you're not just an article, you are a human being in this world that's, I'm happy the paper wanted to spotlight. I'm happy that Carl Sanfilippo put us in touch with each other so that I could spotlight this. But you're so much more than that. And I think when I meet somebody really incredible, I know it when I say, when you shut the cameras off, the real stuff happens. And everything that you bring to the show, audio and visually, has been great. And I think that people can be inspired by it and should be. But the reality of it all is, I love shutting the camera off and then just sitting with you. We never seem to walk to the door and just say, see you later. We always end up talking longer. And I genuinely appreciate your time, Jim, because you figured out life pretty quick. And I would say a lot faster than I have. And, to you, it is cooking and calling a friend and sitting with your wife and hanging out with your kids. To you, it is watching a game. And, I called him at halftime when I was at the Dome for the NC State game. And as soon as he picked up the phone, he started talking about the game. So I mean, life really is that simple for you. And you figured it out. You figured out what life is. And shame on us if we don't take a page from your book and realize what it is and what it's supposed to be. Because you figured it out. You did. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life.
Avicolli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicollis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicolli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Trapper's Pizza Pub, located on 5950 Butternut Drive in East Syracuse. Right off of Bridge Street is your local community supporter right around the corner. Join us on site at Trapper's Pizza Pub for our live monthly broadcast supporting Central New York student athletes and their sports programs. Call 315-438-4444 for more information. And find us on Facebook and Instagram at Trapper's Pizza Pub. Trapper's Pizza Pub, your local community supporter right around the corner.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. That's where you're listening. You're watching live on facebook.com/livenowdt and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. We're speaking here in the Spotlight Special for Jim DaRin inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Jim here had the part 2 of our Spotlight Special from his home coming up in just a few minutes at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. We will be joined by his brother Tom DaRin, who in that picture of his family when Jim was honored, Tom is directly behind him. Tom will be on the show in just a little bit to speak on his brother. And of course, we'll do the ingredients to success, proudly brought to you by Avicolli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, in just a little bit at 10:50 a.m. Eastern Time. So plenty of great stuff coming up here where sports meets life, and very excited for the opportunity to do this. I do want to, with this being a special for Jim DaRin, I did want to give a little background on the DaRin family. Their family had eight altogether. Jim is one of 8. John is the oldest. He's 77, and I'm sorry, and you know what? I'm not going to give ages because there's women on here, and you're not supposed to give ages. So John is the oldest, I will say. He's from Atlanta, and he's in Atlanta, Georgia. Joan, who is the second oldest, unfortunately passed away. And we send our love and our prayers to the family for that. And to Joan watching over us, I wish you the best. I know you're doing well up in heaven, so I don't know why I had to say I wish you the best, but I hope you're having fun up there and having a good time. She has a son and daughter still here on this earth. Bob. Then it comes Bob, who's in Atlanta, Georgia. Janet, who's in Fayetteville, here in New York. Joe, who's in North Carolina. Tom, who is in Penfield. And Jim, so Tom in Penfield by Rochester. Then we have Jim, obviously, that's here. And Chris, that's in Cicero, is the youngest. And Tom and Jim are separated by less than 3 years. So Tom will be joining us in just a little bit. Now, the family, Italo, is Jim's father, who is passed in Virginia, whose mother's passed. And the father was stationed in the Pacific in World War II. Didn't see his first child, John, for the first 2 years he was alive. And then Aunt Yvonne was also raised by Italo and Virginia. She was older than John and considered as like a ninth child to the family. And Yvonne was actually the principal at one time at Baldwinsville. So there's a connection back to Carl Sanfilippo and the family. Pretty cool. And so Tom and I will talk about a lot of different things today. And so I'm not going to give all these away, but he gave me a lot of great notes. I did say yesterday, when we kind of bring it all the way back to cooking, that their mother, Virginia, when they said, Ma, can you make me this? She would instead say, let me show you how to make it, and wanted to teach them how to make it. And they would go a month without having the same meal twice, and there was always no leftovers, which I would anticipate with having 8 plus Aunt Yvonne in the house. So, and just really, really cool that Tom's going to be able to tell his story. So I'm going to hold off on some of this other stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of the background of the family and what, is kind of here with Jim at all times and the support that they have. So, and I asked Tom off the air, I said, looking at your family and knowing that of the 8 children, there was only 2 girls, is that why Jim had twin girls, to try and even out the family? Because I had the conversation at my event at Pizza Man last night when they talk about having like 4 boys and now one of the, the boys is having girls and whatnot. I said, eventually God evens it all out, right? Because it's like, why are there so many boys? Why are there so many girls? But eventually it starts to balance itself out. So all things work together, right? So, and so there's something to be said about, I think, things even out, and I haven't had the opportunity, to know what it's like to be a dad. So I just watch through other people's eyes. And I think it's really cool when you go back to that kitchen in Jim's house and he said, he's like, where I set up and where I'm cooking, he said, my girls can sit there and there's 2 stools and they can sit there and talk to me while I cook. And it brought me back to when my grandfather, my dad's dad, my Pop Miller, I called him, when Pop, he would always be in the basement, and because he was always working. He didn't need to work, but he was always working on something. He was just fixing something, making something. Sometimes I think he was just standing there looking at 2 screws. I don't know. He just, in his head, he was a World War II vet as well, like Italo, and he always needed something to do. And in like a very productive way. So he would be down in the basement and it would be like a Saturday and it's beautiful outside and I just wanted to be with my grandpa. So I'd go down to the basement, and so I go down to like the dingy and dusty basement, and I would just be there with my grandpa. And I would always say, Grandpa, what are you doing? And I try to like pick up magnets and play with stuff because he had a wall full of screws and magnets. And you could just take the magnet and obviously pick up the screws, and something fun for a kid to do. And one day I went downstairs and there was a swing, and it was the basement was tall enough that I could swing on this swing. And it reminds me of the stools that Jim put there for his daughters, because my grandfather, like I said, he passed away when I was 6 back in 1992, and I was sitting on and he just put the swing there, and I would sit there with him, and you'd hear like kids playing outside and stuff, and he had a little window that you could see like the sun shining through. And he said to me, I said, Grandpa, why'd you make this swing? And he said, well, Daniel, he said, I want you to be a kid. And I want you to, play with the kids and, outside. I want you to have the life of any other kid, He said, but I also want you to be with me. And so he built me a swing inside so I could play like the little kids, but I never had to leave his side. And then, he passes away when I'm 6, and you realize that back then I know myself, I didn't regret a moment of being there with him. And now I look back on it and I'm like, thank God I was there. Thank God I didn't go outside, because I didn't know how much time I had. And we never do. So, it's important to sit on that stool and talk with your dad and your mom. It's important to cook together. It's important to clean together. It's important to wash the dog together. It's important to sing together, sit with each other, watch a game together. There's something to be said about how life is better together. So appreciate those moments and don't take any one of them for granted. Make healthy choices. Take the risks that you feel in your gut you need to take. And trust that love will always guide the way. Jim sat here and said he gave up on it. And look at what he has now. Because love never gave up on you, Jim, and neither did God. And he never will. And I tell people all the time that listen to the show and watch the show that, you can believe in God, not believe in God, have the same faith, have a different faith. That's all well and good. But just as I respect that, respect mine. And it means a lot to me when I meet people that do thank God. And Jim, for everything he's been through, he thanks God. Thanks God for his life. And Jim, I want you to know that I will never, ever forget when you said that you leaned over in your hospital bed, you turned your head toward the window, and you said, if I ever get back out there, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to enjoy it. And you got out there. And not only are you enjoying it, but you're getting the rest of us to enjoy it too. Because you're making us see what we should have saw all along. So, we'll take a step aside for a fast break. We'll come back with Tom DaRin, brother and friend of our Spotlight Special, Jim DaRin, right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City. This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Proud to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports truly meets life, and you're seeing that now more than ever, I would say, in this Spotlight Special we've had for a couple days with Mr. Jim DaRin, having him here in a video special split into two parts from his home, and on the first part after that, hearing from his teammate and friend and extended member of the family, Jim Jerome. And now you get to hear from his brother, and also someone who has become his friend as well, because, family can always have that. When you kind of say to yourself, if you weren't my brother or my sister, I'd still choose you. And so Tom DaRin is here with us today. He is in the lineage, which I'll give you again for those of you that are just tuning in the lineage of the family. He's the one right above Jim, from oldest to youngest. Joan, who has passed away. Bob, Janet, Joe, Tom, Jim, and Chris are all here. So Tom and Jim of the younger group here of the 8, and just a little over 2 years apart. Tom a November baby and Jim a February baby, whose birthday is coming up here in just a little bit. So with that being said, it is my honor and my privilege to have Mr. Tom DaRin here on the show to speak with us about his brother and friend. So let's bring him in. Tom, how are we doing today?
Good morning, Dan. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well. And I know that you're down in Rochester. I know that this is off topic, but it's not, because Jim and I talked about food for the majority of our conversation today. I finally got a garbage plate. 1, are you proud of me? 2, do you like them?
Yes, I'm proud that you've had a chance to have one, and I may be one of the few people in Rochester that's not particularly crazy about garbage plates.
Okay, all right, fair enough. What is your since we talked about food a lot here with Jim, and we know that it's kind of his love letter to his family and something that is therapeutic and beautiful for him that he loves to do. What is your favorite food?
Well, there's so many. We were blessed with a mother who was a great cook, and she prepared so many different things for us. But I think I'd have to get something pretty basic that she made that I still love, and that would be a pot roast with all the fixings that would go with it, the potatoes and the vegetables and all that cooked together. So that's still one that's near the top of the list.
All right, pot roast, fair enough. I asked Jim Jerome if Jim had ever cooked for him, and as close as they are, he said no. Has your brother ever cooked for you?
Yeah, and actually I think where Jim's true skills may be is at the grill. So I've been over there where Jim has prepared, some really great stuff from his grill. So that's kind of an expectation, I think, when we head over to Jimmy's place to have him do that for us.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know. And I know he said he was talking about the seasonal side of things and how he likes to get out to the grill and get grilling and get going on that. Do you have a favorite that he's made on the grill? Is it steak? What is it?
Yeah, honestly, just about anything that I think Jimmy would cook. Our dad was a griller as well, too. He loved his steak on Saturday night, and so that became kind of a tradition in the good weather when he could get out grilling, and I think Jimmy's kind of followed Dad's footsteps there.
Speaking here with Tom DaRin, the brother of Jim DaRin, in our Spotlight Special on Jim this week here, and to usher in February of 2021. Tom, you've been able to celebrate so many moments with Jim, and the picture that I actually put up on social media is when Jim was honored by Syracuse, and the family's there, and obviously Luann's there, Shannon's there, Aaron and whatnot, and you're standing right behind him. What can you tell me about being there in these big moments, celebrating maybe that moment specifically, and just what it's like to you to celebrate your brother?
Well, that particular moment was interesting because the award that they were going to name for Jim that night, the Jim DaRin Courage Award, Jimmy did not know about. But I had been contacted by the athletic department at SU to provide some background information, and actually provided them with some photography and videos that they could use for a presentation they were putting together. So what was funny about that night was the dinner was over at Drumlin's, and Jim, of course, was going over with Luann to get ready. He was going to be the keynote speaker that night, but did not know about the award. And so when we walked in, everybody was still in the bar area getting ready to move in for dinner, and Jim gave me that look like, what in the world are you doing here? And so and I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, obviously, so I said, well, we know you're giving the keynote, and we wanted to be here to support you. And so there was that, and then I actually helped Jimmy get up to the stage area, helped wheel him up there, and then once he was done with his keynote, which he did really a phenomenal job. And I know that for those who read the Post Standard article, there was the video embedded in the online version, and he did a great job. But once he finished, then he kind of looked at me like, okay, come and help me get back down off the stage. And I kind of put my hand up like, no, just hang on a minute. and that's when John Wildack, the AD, came up and announced to the crowd that they were going to create this award in Jim's honor. And when you think about the people that have had that distinction at Syracuse University, to have an award named after them, and now Jim is one of, I think it's 9 people in the history of Syracuse football that have an award named after him. I mean, that's an incredible thing by itself. And so when they did that, and then announced the award, and then announcing that it was Rex Culpepper that was getting the initial award, that was a very special moment. So we were so glad that we could be there to share that with him. And I remember riding back to Rochester after the dinner, and I called my brother Bob in Atlanta because he wanted to know everything that happened. Obviously, he couldn't be there, but I wanted to give him kind of all the details. So I think that says a lot about just the connection, within the family, that we all wanted to share and know what was happening there. And then the other part of your question about big moments in his life, I mean, certainly his athletic accomplishments, trying to be present for those moments. And I was in college when Jim was in high school and excelling in high school, and I remember trying as best I could every time he had a game, a football game in particular, to get home from college to do it. Luckily, I was at Cortland at the time, and so it wasn't a long trip, but sometimes I didn't have a car, and so that involved hitchhiking or whatever to get myself back to back to Syracuse so that I could see him play. And so I feel really privileged that, I could share that as well too, to see him play in the big games that he did as an athlete. But the big moments too around Jimmy's injury, and also, being there for him as a family. I was still living in Syracuse at the time, and knowing the struggles that he was going through, obviously physically. Those first couple of weeks after the injury, it was kind of touch and go, and we didn't know what was going to happen. The doctor had told us that if Jim did survive, obviously his life was going to be completely different, as someone who was going to be a quadriplegic. And so I think it was kind of coming to terms with that as a family, and personally coming to terms with that and what that means. And now looking forward 40 some years since the accident, really trying to understand kind of all the phases of Jim's life since then. So the moments of, first of all, him getting well enough to then go into rehabilitation, and then seeing what he did in rehabilitation when he went up to Boston. And I can talk about that specifically, but then kind of after that, coming home and getting his driver's license again, because Jim had to prove that he could drive a car now with hand controls, and that was a big moment. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story on that. Shortly after Jim got his first car, after he came out of the hospital, and he passed his road test with the hand controls, he said, Coach Maloney has invited me to a function in Rome, New York, for the football team, and I'd like to go. And I said, fine, Jim. I said, I'll drive. He goes, oh, no. He goes, I'm driving. And so I was thinking, okay, this is my first time riding in a car with him, and he's using hand controls. And I was thinking, I knew what kind of driver Jimmy was before. I'm not sure what this is going to be like. And the good news was he's infinitely better driver now than he was prior to his injury. So I just remember that kind of short road trip up to Rome, and Jimmy driving all the way up. And then the other thing I remember about that particular event was we sat with Art Monk, and Art was one of Jimmy's teammates. They came in the same class year together, and I just remember how kind Art was towards Jim. Yeah. And watching Art's success, and I apologize for the barking dog in the background. My memory of Art obviously is an all-pro wide receiver and a tremendous athlete was really also enhanced by just what type of man he was and how kind he was to Jimmy that night. So anyway, I didn't want to go off on a tangent there too much, but going back to big moments again, that was one. I think Jimmy's decision to go back to school, and I think all of the frustrations I think that came with that, going back to college, but also learning to live his life independently. And he was living, when he was going back to school, he was living at Skytop, and learning to navigate, life as a college student in a wheelchair. And those were moments too, and that I consider to be big moments of watching him deal with all of that. And then, as kind of life continued to progress, and then, getting his settlement, being able to build his home, which, was tailored perfectly for his situation. Yeah. And how proud he was of that. And then evolving then into meeting Luann and the beginning of their life together. And then a few years after they'd been married, I'll share this story with you that I worked at Nazareth College for many years, and I had come back to my office at the college, and my secretary gave me a message that said, your brother Jim called, he needs to talk to you. And I thought, Jim never calls me at work. So something's definitely up, and I was worried that it might be something about him, about his health. Could have been something about our parents or one of our siblings. So anyway, I rushed into my office. I dialed his number right away, and Jim, in his very calm way, said, he goes, "Tommy, I'm going to be a father." And he said, and by the way, it's going to be twins. And I think I said something to the effect of, you've been defying odds your whole life. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised by this, but still thought it was incredible, especially considering that when he was hurt, what the doctors had kind of laid out for him, at least what they thought his life might be like, was that certainly being a father probably was not going to be in the cards. So in order for that to happen, it was nothing short of amazing. So again, I contribute. I would contribute that as one of those big moments as well too. And then I think recently, Jim overcoming again a very serious health issue, and everything that kind of happened with that, the really by chance opportunity to meet Dr. Huntsman and have Dr. Huntsman really work his magic to help Jim become a healthy man again. I really put in there as big moments. So, I suppose I could have spent most of the morning talking about, kind of great athletic things that I saw Jim do. And believe me, there were plenty of those. But I think those other things that I mentioned probably stand out even more.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful story. And I appreciate everything that you've been sharing here this morning, speaking with Tom DaRin, Jim's brother. And, I'm sitting here in the studio while you're talking about the phone call, and I didn't know what you were going to say. And when you said, Jim never calls me, what's going on? And then he says, "Hey, I'm going to be a father," and it's twins. I mean, what? I mean, like you said, just saying he's been defying odds his whole life. But what went through your head when he said that to you? I mean, this is a man that, had bumps and bruises on the field, had the accident at Miller, built the house and had somebody sit at the table and say, "Yeah, we're not going to be in this house together." I mean, Jim went through adversity in different parts of his life. And when he called you up and said, "I'm going to be a dad and I'm having twins," how did that hit you?
For me, it kind of followed a theme that I think has been characteristic of Jim, which is don't underestimate me. And I think about his how he evolved into being an athlete. And it's interesting because I wouldn't have really considered Jim, the type that was going to be an athlete, even up to maybe about 8th grade. He enjoyed his time just kind of being an outdoors type of person, enjoyed being at the farm next door and working there. But watching him evolve into an athlete again, and I think people may be underestimating that a kid like him could be as good as he was. And I think that maybe that's one of the reasons why he was as good an athlete as he was, because people may have underestimated him. And I think this was another case of, regarding becoming a father, that, the doctors, and I think, and obviously giving complete credit to the doctors, I mean, I don't think they want to lay out a scenario for what your life's going to be after you have an accident like Jim's to say, well, you should be able to do these things. I think the feeling was, based on our best assessment, this is probably going to be pretty close to impossible. And so I think Jim viewed that as, here's one more thing that maybe they're going to underestimate me. I saw that at the rehab hospital as well, too. I visited him in Boston when he was doing his rehab, and I really watched how he tackled all of the things that his physical therapists and occupational therapists were kind of putting in front of him. And I think they appealed to his competitive nature, and then basically said, let's get out of the way and let's see what he can really do. And again, I think Jim was like, don't underestimate me again in terms of what I can do. They said I would never be able to drive a car, but he could drive a car. And he may not be able to cook or feed himself or dress himself. I mean, that's how badly he was hurt, and yet he does all those things. So I think so I think that phone call, from Jim was to me just another chapter in that story about him. About don't think I can't do something that others tell me maybe I can.
And that's the thing. Speaking here with Tom DaRin, Jim's brother, and as we continue in the Spotlight Special on Jim DaRin here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal studios. Tom, like you said, some people rise to the challenge. When somebody says, hey, you're not going to be able to do this, they say, okay, you know what? If there's a 1 in a million chance, then there's a chance. If there's a 1 in a billion chance, 1 in a trillion, 1 in a zillion even, that means I got a shot. Has Jim always been that way where it's like, hey, if you count me out, I'm going to count me in. And no matter how many of you count me out, I'll still count myself in.
Yeah, and I can think of a number of stories again that really illustrate that. And one that comes to mind is in Jim's freshman year, Jim was on made the 2 deep for football team. He was a guard on offense, but Jim was also on the kickoff team. And his first game, they played Villanova, and Jim was on the kickoff team, was heading downfield, got clipped and ended up having a knee problem, had to have knee surgery. And I remember when, after he had the knee surgery, and of course back then, this was really kind of pre-arthroscopic surgery time. So, Jim had to have the major knee surgery, and coming back from that knee surgery, that maybe Jim won't be ready to play this coming season, which would have been his second year at SU. And Jim again was really determined to get himself into playing shape. And so one of the things that he did was he went out and got a weighted vest that he could wear, and then ankle weights. And we grew up across the street from Clark's Reservation State Park, for those that are familiar with where that is in Jamesville. Yeah. And there's a series of stone steps that go from the upper level of the park down to the lake. And Jim would go over there and from the bottom, would run up those stone stairs, which I would kind of challenge anybody, even a really healthy person, to just do that once and see if you could survive. And Jim used to run up and down those stairs with the weighted vests and ankle weights to rehab that knee so that he could put himself into shape. And I seem to recall that at one point Coach Maloney made reference to that when maybe some of the other guys who had been rehabbing some injuries maybe weren't coming along as fast. And I think he pointed out that look at what DaRin's doing on his own here. He's out there trying to get himself into shape. And so I think that kind of illustrates that Jim again maybe wasn't going to pay attention to what people said in terms of what the timeline was going to be for his knee getting back into game shape. And he in turn said, I think again I'm going to maybe defy the odds here a little bit and try to get back into playing shape a lot faster. And so, that I think has always been kind of Jim's thing. Jim also had a great love for ice hockey, and really was, from a skating perspective, was self-taught. It wasn't like Mom and Dad were dragging us to, skating lessons or hockey camps or those sort of things to prepare. It was pretty much stuff that he did on his own. And we were lucky to have our neighbors had a small little pond area that would freeze over nicely in the winter, and Jimmy would go up there and learn how to skate and turn himself into a pretty good hockey player. So I think it's just another example of Jim's willingness and his determination to kind of exceed expectations.
Yeah, and that's, that you talked to me off the air about this, the fact that, Jim has always been Jim. He's never stopped being himself. You said he's always been happy and upbeat. That's why you're close, and that didn't change. He's always been positive. I know that that you said that one of the regrets you had growing up is that you didn't get to play on the same team in high school. To go to the field for a second, you did get to play together in a summer league for lacrosse, and there was a college and high school summer league where you could have some of the high school kids play with the college kids. And you were in college, Jim was in high school. Jim got invited to play in which was normally college player based, and it was out in Cicero. I know Joe Taylor was with you as well, and it's the only time that you and Jim got to play together. You said he was always positive and always upbeat, and that you had a closeness in your relationship in general. When you had the closeness on the field, what was that like to be able to play together for that first and only time?
It was a great experience because I think it really took us back to our backyard lacrosse days. Jimmy's high school coach was my high school coach as well too, Tony Hemmer, and at one point Tony said to us, if you guys want a goal at home, he goes, we have an old one over here that you can take home if you want to. So Jim and I literally put the goal up on top of my car and drove it home, and it gave us a chance to practice. And I mean, for hours and hours on end, we would just shoot on goal and work on our stick skills. So then to be able to transfer that actually to a game situation, albeit a summer league, which was pretty relaxed and loose, obviously compared to more formal competition, but that was great fun, and that's what I think back to then, was just kind of the pure joy of playing a sport in its kind of very basic form, and that summer I think just being able to go out there and pass the ball around and run around and shoot on the goal and all was just it was just pure heaven.
Speaking here with Tom DaRin about his brother Jim in this Spotlight Special here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. You have that heaven on the field together, and then you have that moment that happened not too long after, where it was your last day of teaching, your first year at West Genesee, and you were living in Jamesville with your parents at the time. It was the day that Jim was hurt, and you and your parents were the first to see Jim when he got out of the emergency room. A skull fracture, stitches in his head, his throat wound. They didn't know at the time he had a spine issue, and he was awake. Bring me into that moment for you of seeing your brother, your friend, somebody that you love dearly, very young, and laying in this bed, and I'm sure the memories of playing on the field, the memories of growing up together, the memories of just seeing him standing upright and walking and whatnot probably flow through your head en route to this hospital, and then seeing Jim laying there in the bed. Just what went through you as his brother, as his friend, and, as someone who obviously I could tell has been inspired by Jim.
Well, I think based on what we were hearing when we first walked in the door of the hospital in Fulton about the nature of the injury and what they were trying to treat at the time, my initial thought was, how in the world did he survive? It just sounds like the type of injury that people don't survive, let alone, in his case, remain alert and conscious despite this horrific accident. Yeah. And so I think it was probably that as an initial thought, without really beginning to think about kind of day 2 and day 3 and et cetera from that point on, what the rest of his life was going to be like. I think we were just dealing with the here and now and what that really meant. And eventually we reached a point where Jim had been sedated and was going to be there for the night. His accident happened at about 9 o'clock at night or so. So by the time we got to after the accident, by the time we got to the hospital, it was probably 10:30 and all. So my dad and I drove my folks up to Fulton to see him, and then my dad and I realized that, we could probably go home for the rest of the night. Mom decided to stay in the hospital, and throughout the night, Jim kept telling Mom, Mom, I can't feel anything. And then Mom then relaying that to the nurses and the doctors that were there, and I think they were just saying, well, that's just kind of the nature of the trauma of his injury, that he's going to be feeling that way. But I think she sensed, and as a mother who raised as many children as she did, I think you get a sixth sense about what's the matter with your children when maybe others don't recognize it. And I think she knew that there was something even more seriously wrong with Jim, and that's when my sister Janet and her husband Nick Rosh then got involved, and I think then Nick coming up to the hospital, and Nick was a medical resident at the time. He was training to be a radiologist, and so Mom put a lot of trust in Nick's judgment. And I think Nick then coming up and just kind of doing his view of what he saw and what he was hearing, he knew that there was probably something more to it than what was there. And that's when he started making some phone calls, and Jim got transferred to upstate, and then that's where Dr. King, the neurologist, and Dr. Rabuzzi, who treated Jimmy's throat wound, got involved and really began to lay out for us, I think, what really had happened. And that's when I remember that next day. Jimmy was hurt on a Friday night, so this was now Saturday afternoon. Jim finally got to upstate, and I think kind of hearing their assessment, both before the surgery and then after the surgery, I think was the sort of thing that was just, it was almost too incredible to believe in terms of what had actually happened to him. And again, how was it that Jim was still with us? So that really became, I think, as a family, kind of how we were viewing things initially, that, boy, we're just really thankful that Jim's still with us, without really thinking about what this kind of meant going forward. And I think we wanted to take it a day at a time. And then as over time, as Jim's situation kind of evolved, and we got to see how healthy he was going to become and what his limitations were going to be, then being able to assess, what his life was going to be like, and where that life might be. And in Jim's case, he always knew he had the support of the family. Certainly Mom and Dad were going to do everything they could, and as siblings, we were going to try to do everything that we could. But we also recognized that we also had our lives as well too, and everybody in the family, certainly made a very strong effort to be with Jim, to travel from all over the country to be there with him. But there does reach a point where you say, I do have to get back to my own life, and that's not a criticism at all. It's just the reality that we can't be there all the time, 24/7. And I think the realization again that there was going to be a point where Jim was going to have to be on his own, and Jim wanted to be on his own, so that I think we had to allow that to happen. And I think watching my parents in particular kind of very reluctantly give up that control that parents want to have, especially in a situation like that, to say, Jim, you'll always have a soft place to land here. We'll take care of you. And yet, Jimmy's insistence that I don't want to overburden my family that way, that I want to show them that I can be an independent person here, despite all the limitations that I have. And so I think that again, that theme kind of carried forward from the accident, kind of allowing us to really understand what Jim's life was going to be like, and then maybe what role we could play in that. And, for myself, speaking just for myself, as his brother, that, to continue to be his brother in the way that we had always been brothers, not to treat Jim differently. He didn't want that, and I didn't want to do that. We wanted to be able to, still laugh about the things that we always laughed about, and to share stories and maybe work ourselves through some tough times and a problem together. And so that wasn't gonna change. And I think that helped Jim as well too. That we always still kind of viewed him as Jim. We always called him Jimbo, and Jimbo was always going to be Jimbo, and that we didn't want to try to treat him any differently. And I think that made him feel a lot more like he wasn't separated from the rest of us.
That coming here from Tom DaRin, Jim's brother, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in this Spotlight Special on Jim DaRin here from the Cafe Kubal Studios. Tom, before I let you go, a few things here. One of them being that you said that you felt a little piece of heaven when you got to get on the field with Jim. What are the little piece of heaven moments with Jim now in your relationship?
Well, again, Jim and I talk regularly, and I think, again, it's just having those conversations that, we've kind of always had as brothers. I mean, the last time we talked, we got talking about hockey, and we got talking about the Syracuse Blazers and how we used to go to games and how reasonable it was for the two of us to go, buy an admission ticket, buy a box of popcorn, and read the hockey news, and just, the treat that was for us. But, now I think one of the things I've tried to do too is do some things in my life that I think can help, honor Jim as well too. And so in my role at Nazareth College as I was vice president for enrollment management. One of the things that I led at the college was for us to add physical therapy and occupational therapy as majors. And again, I was obviously influenced by Jim and his experience with physical therapists, including his wife Luann, and occupational therapists. I remember telling our academic VP when we were having these conversations about adding it as a major. This was in the early 1990s, and I said, doctors saved Jim's life, but physical therapists and occupational therapists gave him a life.
Yeah.
And so that became kind of the impetus for me to say, I think looking at this strategically for the college, I think this is a good program. There's a lot of demand for it. I think we're set up well to be able to have these programs. And so for me, that was one of the ways that I thought I could help families, much like our families were helped by PTs and OTs and nurses, that I could help other families going forward by creating programs like this. And then to add to that, 10 years ago, the college was going through a capital campaign, and I was approached about giving a gift. And I decided to establish an endowed fund in Jimmy's name. And that endowed fund now supports the teaching and learning for physical therapy, occupational therapy, and nursing students at the college. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that it didn't just stop when my days are done. That these will be things that will continue on, that I think still honor Jim. So that we're training at Nazareth. They're training the best PTs and OTs and nurses that they can to deal with patients like Jim and to deal with families like our family. Again, kind of putting my money where my mouth is by setting up the endowed fund. Those dollars, again, will help support students and faculty in those areas to, again, train them well so that if they come across someone who's had a spinal cord injury and is maybe in need encouragement or in need of learning how to use a certain piece of equipment, whatever, then there's a fund there that will help do that. And so that, I think, is part of the relationship that I've wanted to have with Jim too, that it's obviously us just continuing to be close brothers, but I think also a legacy that is something that can endure and help others that were in a similar situation to our own.
You know, and that's the whole thing, you know, paying it forward and not just, you know, going through everything that you've gone through, but then to think of other people. You know, Tom, has your family always been that way? I mean, have the DaRins always had that notion? Is that what you got from Italo and Virginia and from each other, that, you know, it's not good enough to just help yourself? You gotta do what you can to help other people as well? Because I see it with Jim. I hear it with you today. I get that feeling from his family. What you can say about, you know, the notion that it's not good enough to look out for yourself, but you got to go beyond. And Jim's now said to me a couple times, he said, when you stop focusing on the you in life, you really take, you know, and everything. He said, when you take the focus off the you and what's happening to me and why is this happening to me, he said, you take a lot of the burden off your shoulders. So, you know, he's not a me-centric person. It doesn't sound like you are either. Where did that come from, and why is it important to pay it forward?
Well, we certainly got it from our mom and dad. You know, my mom was a very kind and very gentle soul, and was always looking out for others. And so I think we not only heard that this is what you're supposed to do, but we saw it every day. Not only in how she took care of us and other family members, but friends, even acquaintances. You know, someone was in need of help. Mom was just one of those people that was kind of the first in line to help. And so I think we saw that in her actions. And my dad was the type that Dad was very handy with tools. And so somebody said, hey, my washing machine broke, or, you know, my sidewalk is cracked, or my roof needs fixing. They always knew they could count on Dad to be able to do that sort of thing. So again, I think we witnessed that enough without the, you know, sometimes in parenting you think you have to sit the kids down and say this is what you're supposed to do, and I think we know that that's probably much less effective than just how they observe us and what we do kind of on a day-to-day basis. And I think that was certainly part of our growing up, was watching how they not only looked out for us, but looked out for other people, and that you know, the circle is bigger than just that immediate family that lived on Seneca Turnpike in Janesville. That the family's a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, you know, and you, speaking on family and speaking on being a parent, you know, you said to me off the air, my children and grandchildren don't know Jim any other way. He shows how capable you can be. Just to go into that before I let you go, speaking here with Tom DaRin, brother of Jim DaRin, as we spotlight Jim here to start off February in our 2-day special. And it's weird, I say the 2-day special. I mean, I'll do my best to speak about Jim or utilize what he teaches me every chance I get, because it speaks to my heart. Your children and your grandchildren don't know Jim to be anybody other than who he is post-accident. Just what you can say about that, and, you know, what that does for your kids and your grandkids to treat everybody equally and understand that it is the content of your character and it's the strength of your spirit more than anything else.
Yeah, I think that it's shown them, you know, how to be with people that are different from them. In this case, you know, physical difference, that Jimmy is unable to walk, but that doesn't change anything about what a great person, you know, Uncle Jimbo is for all of our kids. So that's another legacy, again, that I think we've wanted to pass along to our kids, and Jimmy's just one example of that when dealing in their lives with people that are different, whatever that might entail, be it different racial or ethnic or cultural background or faith tradition, whatever the case might be, that we don't treat them any differently. They're still going to be treated the same, and so I think that legacy, I think, carrying forward has been really important in our family, and I see that with my children, and the grandchildren are still small enough, but I think that they're going to be around it enough to know that we're extending a helping hand to people. As my dad used to say, extend an open hand, not a closed fist. And you open your hand to other people and show kindness, and those were clearly values that were passed down from my mother and father, and certainly Jim has been a living example of that.
That coming here from Tom DaRin on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora today. Tom, we've flowed into what's on this show is called the ingredients to success. So the final piece that I would love to have you here for is, it's something that's brought here locally by Avicolli's restaurant on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road. And it gives me the opportunity to pick a topic every week and then choose ingredients to success. I'm going to pick a topic, but I'd love for you to give the ingredients to success. And the topic is going to be when life doesn't go how you expected it to go. What are the ingredients to success when life doesn't take the path that you thought it would?
I think in some cases it's being true to yourself and your own abilities, and then persevering. And sometimes we have to be our own best cheerleaders and advocates, and in order for us to continue to carry through and find fulfillment and satisfaction and happiness in our life. And so I think just looking at my own case, I think that clearly has been the route that I've tried to take, is persevere, have a plan, and follow that plan, even maybe when others are saying, maybe this isn't the direction you should be going. So hopefully there's a few nuggets there that you could put into that recipe.
Coming here from Tom DaRin here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Tom, I appreciate it so very much. I know that you've taken extensive time with us this morning to speak on your brother and to, speak on your relationship and the importance of persevering, believing in yourself, and like you just said, for the ingredients to success, to, have a plan and trust that plan and trust yourself even when, the world might be against you, even when people that, you normally look to for that advice might say don't go that way, but you feel it deep down inside that you should. So thank you for your positive words. Thank you for your time with, about Jim, and thank you for all that you do. And thank you for being there that night and for, loving your brother, because there's something to be said about how cool of a life I think he gets to live now with just really great people surrounding him. And, I told him, I said, you have so much love, and people that didn't go through an accident like that and haven't been through something of that adversity, they don't have half of what you have. So I think God still taking care of Jim and taking care of, those that really believe and take the time to take the time. So thank you for what you do, and thank you for, your family and for being there for Jim, because Jim is, he's incredible. And I know he doesn't ask for much, but it definitely, it goes a long way what he gives.
Well, thank you, Dan, again, for all that you've done as well, and helping to share Jimmy's story. We're just incredibly proud of him. And so again, our thanks as well.
Well, take care of yourself in the tundra that is Rochester area, and I'll look forward to talking with you soon.
Thank you, Dan. Bye-bye now.
Take care. That coming from Tom DaRin here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets life. I want to thank Tom for being here and hanging out with us on the air, as well as giving us our ingredients to success with the topic when things in life don't go how we planned them. We'll take a final step aside of today's show, and we'll get you all set and on your way right after this.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecabal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpassnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13, is worth the drive every time. Come rain, snow, or shine, make sure that you head out there to the Millhouse Market. They have combinations of food that you wouldn't even think to put together in a sandwich or on a pizza. Absolutely incredible. And you talk about how Jim DaRin and I spoke today. You talk about, a love letter through food, and the Millhouse Market writes a ton of them daily, and we pick them up there, and we appreciate them so very much. I know that I do. So make sure you download the app by looking up the Millhouse Market on the Google Play or Apple App Store. Once you have that, you'll have everything on your phone, very user-friendly. The entire menu of quinoa bowls, rice bowls, brick oven pizzas, sandwiches named after the families that helped to settle today's Pulaski, salads, desserts, and homemade breads, all of it there for you. Absolutely incredible. Those recipes that they put together in the Millhouse Market are second to none. So whether it's a mile down the road or 30 miles or 50 miles down the road, I tell you it's worth the drive every single time. And I've made so many drives up there, and I'm very hungry now, and my stomach's like, you say Millhouse Market, you know where we're going. So basically the reality of it all is the Millhouse Market is absolutely incredible. Their general store has local products from local companies. Their bistro restaurant is open on the weekends inside. And of course you have the opportunity to drive up to their window Tuesday through Sunday to get your favorites after you order on the app, or you can call to order as well for the Millhouse Market on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. Worth the drive every time. With that being stated, I want to thank you all for being a part of today's show inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You've been listening on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. You've been watching on facebook.com/livenowdt. You've also been listening on wakeupcalldt.com, and you've been watching on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So for however you've watched and listened, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I want to thank Jim DaRin as well as Tom DaRin, and of course his family, including Shannon, who weighed in on today's show and brought us a little bit of comedy this morning. The ingredients to success proudly brought to you by Avicolli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York as well. For all that they do in our community, you can go to myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com, and and check them out there. You can get 10% off all online orders by going to myavicollis.com and using the promo code AVS10. That is AVS10. So make sure you're listening and watching the Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time as we carry you throughout this week and beyond. We carried you all through the pandemic, and I'll always be here for you. Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, and WakeUpCallDT.com's home page, where you'll find a bunch of our videos that we've done in the community and on the show. And there's so much to find on WakeUpCallDT.com, and it's free, and you can subscribe and stay connected to WakeUpCallDT.com. So make sure that you bookmark it, subscribe to it, and keep it right there in your pocket. You could search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora's archive on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Podbean, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, iHeartRadio, and YouTube.com/Wake Up Call DT. And a proud thanks to our partners, Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicolli's, Honda City of Liverpool, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, and Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, anywhere inside of the 50 states, as well as obviously right here in our community. If you're doing in-store pickup or you're having it delivered out to you, you can go to maandpaspopcorn.com in any one of the 50 states and get 20% off on me by using the promo code DT20. My initials, Dan Tortora, DT20. Use my promo code at maandpaspopcorn.com for in-store pickup as well as delivery to any one of the 50 states. Use DT20 at maandpaspopcorn.com for 20% off. With that being said, I hope you have a fantastic day. Thank you again to Tom and Jim DaRin. Thank you to you. Thank you to Avicolli's for the ingredients to success. Thank you for Tom giving us the opportunity to that he hosted essentially the ingredients to success this week for Avicolli's. And a big shout out to everybody that watched and listened. Stay positive. Make a plan. Be okay with having a backup plan when things don't go your way. And trust in yourself. Take the risks that you feel like you should take in your gut. And don't ever live. You know, this is the best way to live life. Would you regret it if you didn't do it? And if the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, I wouldn't really care, then don't worry about it. But don't live your life with regret. Go after what you want and have the patience to know that sometimes it takes time for things to come to you. Jim, Tom, thank you. Everybody watching and listening, thank you. To Shannon, Aaron, Luann, Holly, and the family, thank you. And to God above, there is no better friend. We'll talk with you soon. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. We don't have the answers for everything and why things happen. But Jim, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you made it through everything. And I'm happy that we're building a friendship. Because that friendship is very dear to me. And I appreciate it very much. So thank you for that. And God bless. No stress. Do your best. As I always tell you to end the show. I'll talk with you all soon. Be well and stay safe.